Let's see what the world champ is up to. Pachirisu. So when I saw this video, I knew I had to react to it. So for those who do not know, my name is Colin Heyer. I placed third at the World Championships in 2014, as we see on the screen there. I placed third at this World Champions, and I had the honor to lose to Pachirisu. So I thought, you know what? This is a perfect video. I can add some insight, tell you what it was like to face the champ, and, you know, just talk about 2014, the event, and maybe add some more depth to an already great video. So let's get into it.
2014 was shaping up to be just like any other year of competitive Pokemon.
Except this is the year that yours truly would place third at Worlds. Anyways, as you were saying, Wolf.
The circuit had crowned various national champions, and Worlds was quickly approaching. After a surprisingly ordinary year, no one really knew how unprecedented the events that were yet to unfold would be. For competitive Pokemon, 2014 was a year unlike any other. I'm referring...
There he is! There he is! There he is! Colin Heyer, third in the world, baby! What a year. What a year. Oh man, this bracket was really, really cool actually, because we had a different person from every country except for the United States, and the only overlap was me and Judy, of course. So like the top 8 was really interesting because we were all trying to play for our country in a way, but also just like no one knew each other. I remember there's a picture of Judy and I just sitting and laughing. Like it's a picture of the entire top 8, and it's just Judy and I smiling at each other, and we're just having a good time because we know each other, but no one else is like really friendly or friends in the top 8. Everyone else is like serious tryhard face, and then Jody and I are just smiling at each other, having a good time. It's one of my favorite pictures because it was just such a cool moment because I had a friend in top 8. And it was so nice, like, because this is like the world stage. This is everything that we've built up to. And I have someone to talk to, and we're both experiencing it together for the first time. It was a really cool experience, and just having Jody with me was such a huge, such a nice touch to an already amazing cut.
Referring, of course, to the World Championship Finals. South Korea's legendary Sejun Park would be facing off against one of America's newest threats, Jody Azzarelli. In this matchup, Sejun was considered the favorite. His resume sported the second place at the...
Sejun's resume is probably one of the craziest things in the game at this point, outside of Ray's. Like, I mean, Ray, Wolfe, and Sejun are obviously all legends. At this point, Sejun, it was just like, Sejun, when are you going to win, dude? When are you going to win? I feel like if you weren't rooting for Sejun and Wolfe, like, those two were just easily the best, and it was just crazy that neither of them had won yet because Ray was just dominating. And then Arash just took that win out of nowhere, so now it was finally Sejun's turn to win. I think if Judy actually upset Sejun like that with that win, it would have been just crazy for Judy's career. That would have been a crazy win. At this point, Sejun had won every Nats he's been to. He got second at Worlds and Seniors, and everyone's like, all right, it's Seniors, who cares, right? He comes back next year top 8 at his first Masters Worlds with Bisharp, to completely obscure Pokemon. And then the year after that, he gets top 8 again with Magmar. This dude, creative genius. Like, Sejun is so insane. And, you know, obviously he whips out this Pachirisu here. It was just such a cool... He's one of the coolest players. He was my favorite player at the time, like, hands down. I was obsessed with Sejun. Huge fan. I would watch his replays all the time just so I could, you know, get some sort of semblance of his skill. And it was such a cool experience to play against him. We'll probably talk about that later. But at this point, it was like, Sejun, come on, man. Just win Worlds. You can do it. You can do it. You're the best. So it was just so... Oh, it was so nuts to see him here on the world stage once again, and now this was his time. This was his moment, and obviously we get to see him do it.
So the World Championships in 2011 in the Seniors division, which is a younger division made up of 11 to 15-year-olds, and back-to-back top 8s at both the 2012 and 2013 World Championships. To add to this already impressive resume, he dominated in his own country, winning 3 South Korean nationals in 2011, 2013, and 2014 in the Masters division, which is the division for 15 and up. While Sejun has always been admired as a winner, Sejun's team building stands almost in a league of its own. His teams have routinely had massive impacts on every format he played in. At his national tournament in 2011, Sejun won the Masters division when he should have been playing in the Seniors division. Unfortunately for the Masters he faced off against, Korea didn't have a Seniors division at the time, so Sejun settled for the only trophy available to him. Jody, on the other hand, was the underdog. He was newer to VGC, but people in the scene knew he shouldn't be underestimated.
Jody was a really cool story to follow. I feel like Jody's so overlooked because of Pachirisu and all that. But I think Jody's success in 2014 was like it was just insane. Jody is an insane player, and he deserves so much more fame. So in 2014, he came up with these completely wacky and crazy strategies for pretty standard Pokemon. His most famous was this Talonflame he used, which was like this Will-O-Wisp Talonflame, which no one had thought to use. And Jody destroyed Nationals. He ended up getting top 8 at Nats. And Jody was like, kind of came out of nowhere. But I was actually part of I was friends with people that Jody were friends with, and people were like, dude, Colin, listen, this guy, Jody, he is insane. You have to watch out for this guy. He honestly could win Worlds. And I'm like, okay, I mean, sure. I really don't know him, but like, I'll keep an eye out. And then I see him at Nats, and I'm like, this dude's gifted. This dude's gonna go crazy. Like, Jody he was so close to probably winning Nats. In 2014 Nats, it was a really weird Nationals because all the favorites got upset by the underdogs. We had Ray Rizzo in top 8 of Nats, Jody, Simon Yip, and Gavin Michaels, all really, really strong players who all got upset by these new fresh players, such as, Alex Oglaza wasn't that fresh, but like, no one really never necessarily expected him to win Nationals. He upsets, Adib upsets, John Hu upsets, and then Logan Castro upsets. All crazy upsets at Nats, and Jody was one of the ones that got upset, and I think that's what really buried him, and people weren't necessarily like, he got top 8 at Nats. Could be a fluke. Who knows? But Jody was like, no, this wasn't a fluke. I'm actually incredibly good at this game. And, oh, man. I could just talk about Jody for hours. This guy's crazy. His team was genius. I thought he had a pretty standardish team, but he added enough freshness and enough creativeness to the team that allowed him this amazing finish. And second place is no joke, but I think Jody was extremely slept on at the time. I think he still is slept on. But I think watching Jody, like, I don't think it was surprising to me because of all the hype that his friends had told me about. But I think a lot of people don't necessarily realize how crazy good Jody was in 2014 specifically. Dude, I considered myself a master of 2014, and I thought I understood the game fully. I think Jody understood it better than me. And I thought I had a really, really good grasp. I got third at Worlds. I practiced and played 2014 every single day of that year. I really wanted to win Worlds. And I think Jody, I have just so much respect for him because I put in all that work and I put all that time, and Jody did too. And I recognize that, and I see how skilled this player was. And I'm a huge Jody fan. I'm a huge Sejun fan. This finals was really sick, but oh man, this guy is just extremely slept on.
He'd had impressive performances throughout 2014 and was a part of a group of players who had been having a number of consistent results throughout the format. Additionally, both players had unusual, creative Pokemon choices on their teams, which meant as a spectator, it wasn't going to be a matchup we were especially used to seeing. The final start and the games are close, but Sejun ends up winning 2-0. At this point, we still have no idea that this Worlds result are going to be unlike anything we've seen before or after. The weekend draws to a close. We say goodbye to our friends, and everyone begins their journeys home. The internet, on the other hand, explodes. The reaction to Sejun's, and more specifically Pachirisu's win, is unprecedented. Something about Pachirisu, maybe it's...
There I am! That's me! That's my Zapdos and Mawile about to get bodied by Pachirisu. Oh my god, it's me!
Cuteness, maybe it's smallness, maybe it's squirrelness, has resonated with people all over the world, and they love it. To many people, Pachirisu represented a narrative that people love to associate with Pokemon, that you should always try and win with your favorite Pokemon. Pachirisu doesn't look very flashy. It's a little electric squirrel, not unlike Pikachu, and when you see it facing down against gigantic dragon-type Pokemon, it looks a little out of place. I think for many people, Pachirisu felt like the ultimate underdog, like it wasn't even supposed to have qualified for the tournament, let alone made it to the finals. And they loved it. It does look that way. There was incredible fan art at first, but it didn't stop there. South Korea soon held parades for Sejun and Pachirisu's win, specifically 8 parades held over 4 days with exclusive merchandise featuring Pachirisu.
I'm not gonna lie to you, I tried to get the Pachirisu merch. I would be lying if I said I wasn't trying to get the Sejun Pachirisu merch. I really wanted that hat. There was a sick hat. I didn't get it.
Special VGC and TCG tournaments, and special meet and greets with Mr. Junichi Masuda from Game Freak, and of course, Sejun Park himself. However, the event may have been too successful for its own good. The first parade was so popular that there were serious overcrowding concerns, and the majority of the rest of the parades had to be called off. For those of you not super familiar with VGC, allow me to be the first to assure you that this celebration isn't typical. To my knowledge, no other world champion has had any form of parade or exclusive merchandise given out, so this experience was incredibly special to witness and be a part of the community for. Especially given how close Sejun had been to victory in the past 3 years.
Sejun's insane.
That narrative I mentioned earlier about how you should win with your favorites and that Pachirisu was this lackluster Pokemon that Sejun only used because he loved it, isn't entirely true. The truth of the matter is that Pachirisu was an incredibly intelligent and specific choice for one particular tournament, and the wisdom of this decision resulted in Sejun's victory. I want to tell you about the secrets behind Pachirisu's success. Now, bear with me here, because we have to set the stage a bit. The year is 2014. VGC players are faced with two major changes in their competitive scene. The first being the introduction of a new generation on a new system, Generation 6's Pokemon X and Y. It also means that the current VGC rule set is condensed to what is known as the Regional Dex. A Regional Dex format means only the Pokemon available prior to unlocking the National Dex in a game are legal. In other words, it's the most restricted type of format, with the least amount of Pokemon available. Regional Dexes tend to be interesting for a number of reasons. With less Pokemon available, the overall power level tends to be lower than formats with more options.
Regional dexes are really, really weird because the power creep is, like, Wolf's totally right. Like, the power creep is just a whole different thing. So there's these Pokemon that you can use that normally would be considered garbage, such as Pyroar or Noivern. They're not very good. But we saw players win nationals with Pyroar. We saw Noivern brought to Worlds, where we won't necessarily see these Pokemon ever again. I haven't seen Pyroar in years, but it won a national. There was a whole week in 2014 where Pyroar was the best Pokemon in the game. And it's really, really cool because these unique Pokemon really have a time to shine, and I think Pachirisu was one of those Pokemon as well. I don't think Pachirisu is ever good again. I don't think so. But, like, specifically in this moment, it was genius, just like Pyro was. It's a really cool phenomenon, and sometimes that makes people love these kind of formats, and some people hate these.
However, the number of good defensive tools also tends to be lower. X and Y introduced a really interesting challenge in the form of Mega Evolution. Mega Evolution allowed certain Pokemon to reach incredible power levels of offensive potency, but a substantial balancing issue made it clear that the defensive tools available couldn't really keep up. The biggest offender of such was Mega Kangaskhan.
Mega Kangaskhan was a plague. Oh my god, this Pokemon was so obnoxious. It could even, like, kill Mega Mawile, even though you resisted the hits. If you switched it in a power-up punch, you died. It was absolutely insane. I think the 2014... For me, sometimes I always forget about 2014 because, you know, it's been a while. It's been a couple of years. But, like, I always forget how hyper offense and how aggressive this format was. It was absolutely insane. Charizard, Kangaskhan, even Mawile to some degree, all put on insane amounts of pressure. And the game was, like, if you weren't matching their Mega and you weren't keeping pace with them, you were probably losing. It was a really, really crazy year. I kind of hated it at the time, but I always, like, look back with these rose-tinted glasses. But it truly did kind of suck to play this hyper offense with Kangaskhan. Kangaskhan was insane. Insane Pokemon.
With incredible base stats, great defensive typing, a broken ability, and a phenomenal offensive move pool, Kangaskhan dominated much of the format. It had so many tools. Fake Out offered priority and flinch, Power Up Punch gave +2 attack and dealt damage, Sucker Punch was a strong priority move, and worst of all, Return was a no drawback strong stab move. As a fun fact, in order to balance Kangaskhan in Generation 7, it no longer learned Power Up Punch, its ability Parental Bond was significantly weakened, and the base power for Sucker Punch was dropped as well.
Despite all these things, it was still good in 2018. Like, this Pokemon is just beyond broken.
Most VGC formats tend to skew special, but 2014 had a diverse pool of physical attackers that commanded respect. One of which, Talonflame, used its powerful priority Brave Bird, often coupled with Choice Band or Life Orb, to put immense pressure on teams. Talonflame would also go on to receive a nerf in later games. Garchomp returned as a rather large threat due to its high base stats, ability to outspeed Kangaskhan, and good synergy with Tyranitar, who was another strong physical attacker at the time. One of the ways people tried to slow down these powerful physical threats was Intimidate, but unfortunately many of the Intimidate users just weren't strong enough. Nowadays, we have powerful Pokemon like Landorus
It's
T
him!
and
Incineroar!
that offer Intimidate support, but due to 2014's limited selection of Pokemon, the best Intimidate users were non-Mega Salamence, Scrafty, and Mawile, to name a few. So,
Mawile's stats are incredible. The fact so I'm a huge Mawile fan. I'm a giant Mawile fan. I love this Pokemon. But this Pokemon is absolute dog water. This thing's so bad. Like oh my god, I can't even look at the stats. This Pokemon being one of my signature and one of my favorite Pokemon. This Pokemon being like winning an event with this Pokemon just seems unreal. Like obviously the Mega Evolution's busted, but like Mawile's so bad. I love Mawile with all my heart, but this Pokemon and its stats has no reason to be good. Oh my god. I can't believe we use this thing.
2014 is a year with many physical attackers exerting tons of pressure, and one of the best counters to physical attackers in Intimidate is struggling. Kangaskhan has dominated much of the format, winning US and Japan Nationals, which are two of the last tournaments before Worlds. But in South Korea, Sejun wins Nationals with a Rain team, featuring Mega Mawile as its Mega.
This team was really interesting. It had a lot of influence over other metas, like specifically our meta going into Worlds. I felt like a lot of American players, I know some of my friends who competed at Worlds, used the same 6 Pokemon you see here, and this team did influence me a little bit. So going into Worlds, one of my main ideas was Zapdos is the best Pokemon in the game, straight up. No, I don't... For some reason, people didn't really realize this. I feel like only a handful of people thought Zapdos was good. But I thought this Pokemon was just borderline busted. It was just thunderous, but not as good. And I think the best core in the game is Zapdos, Mawile, Hydreigon. I think those 3 together can beat almost anything, and that's what I built my Worlds team around, and obviously it's featured here. But I thought the Rain mode wasn't as strong, and I did take a step back. There was another Korean player who I was friends with at the time who I conversed about Zapdos, Mawile, Hydreigon, and they always used it as well. That was something that I was really in love with the idea of, and Sejun just kind of confirmed it for me, like, hey, this stuff is so good. And I think it was really interesting because I think a lot of players didn't... They just kind of copied the team. They never tried to make it their own. Like, I know some people who directly took these 6 to Worlds. I don't think that's ever the approach, and I think building on the god core of that team was the way to go.
I'm not entirely sure if it's because of Sejun's victory in Korea or just due to everyone wanting to counter Kangaskhan, but the metagame began to shift.
I think it was mainly due to the Kangaskhan thing. I think Kangaskhan had dominated the game for the entire year, and obviously I could be wrong, but like my impression more as a top competitor at the time was like Kangaskhan was the Pokemon to counter at Worlds. Like, you can't lose to Kangaskhan. And, like, my team had tons of answers to Kangaskhan. I know tons of other people did as well. And I think Kangaskhan just got, like, completely and utterly obliterated at Worlds. It was still a good Pokemon, but I think we finally started to react to Kangaskhan and give it the respect it deserved, which was so much. And I think Mawile was naturally... There was kind of a circle, right? Kangaskhan matches up more positively against Zard. Zard matches up against Mawile, and then... Mawile loses to Zard. It was kind of a circle. For Charizard, Kangaskhan is obviously like kind of a wash because they speed tie. But I do think that Mawile was the play for Worlds, and you can see Jody running Charizard was a genius call, and also not running Mawile was kind of the play, unless you were just a fantastic Mawile player like myself.
In fact, it shifts pretty violently, and it shifts towards Mega Mawile being the choice of Mega on most teams. In fact, 3rd through 7th...
There he is! It's me! The battle room! There he is! I was the best Mawile player in the world, and I will be probably forever.
3rd through 7th place at the World Championships this year would all utilize Mega Mawile, and the highest placing Kangaskhan player finishes at 14th with Germany's Marcus Stanter. Quick note, this wasn't the first time Mega Mawile had been used or had become popular, but the shift right before the World Championships felt much more significant in terms of usage than anything the format had seen thus far.
Hard agree.
So, why is all this relevant when talking about Pachirisu? Well, Sejun is building for the World Championships, and he notices something interesting. Mega Gyarados. It has quite a few things going for it. It's a good Intimidate user, which, as we established, is hard to come by. It can set up with Dragon Dance. It has much better physical bulk than regular Gyarados, which, when combined with Intimidate, makes it rather bulky on the physical side. It also has a number of positive matchups in the metagame. Talonflame, like we mentioned, does not enjoy facing down Mega Gyarados because it gets knocked out by unboosted Waterfall. Garchomp doesn't match up well into Mega Gyarados because it can't do much damage and has to choose between Rock Slide, which is really bad if Gyarados Mega Evolves, or Earthquake, which is really bad if Gyarados doesn't Mega Evolve. Gyarados' Earthquake also hits Mega Mawile for super effective damage.
That's the game-losing turn of my battle, by the way. Just so you know.
And, speaking of Earthquake, one of the most popular Pokemon in this format is Rotom, which Mega Gyarados can hit with ground moves thanks to Mold Breaker ignoring Levitate. Not to mention Aegislash, another popular Pokemon, really hates Mega Gyarados for a number of reasons.
He does.
I could go on about specific Pokemon, but I think you get the gist. There's also one additional factor here that shouldn't be understated: surprise factor. Gyarados was actually relatively popular earlier in the format, but Ludicolo and Safety Goggles Zapdos' rise made Gyarados' life really difficult, especially since it doesn't get a good flying move for Pokemon like Ludicolo or Amoonguss. So, it's right before Worlds, and Gyarados is really not a common Mega Evolution.
Not at all.
And Sejun recognizes that not only is Gyarados a good choice for the current metagame, but it also is likely to catch his opponents off guard, as Gyarados has all but disappeared from the metagame. Pokemon is a game about making choices, and the less information you have, the harder it is to make the right choices. Okay, Wolfe, but this video was supposed to be about Pachirisu, and all you're doing is talking about Gyarados. Well, I think we're finally ready. We've established that Gyarados was a good choice for the World Championships given what was popular. We have not established how Sejun was going to support it. Sejun identifies that Gothitelle is a good support Pokemon here. He chooses to run Tickle, Thunderwave, and Psyshock on it.
Gothitelle was a genius, incredible call. At this point in the game, very few people knew how good Gothitelle was, including myself. I thought Gothitelle was kind of cheesy, kind of whatever. After Worlds, I became a Gothitelle stan, but I think there were 3 players in the event who brought Gothitelle. It's Sejun, who won Worlds, Wolfe, who got 9th. Wolfe's team, I'm gonna be honest with you, Wolfe's team was so ahead of its time. It was genius. Man, Wolfe's team was really, really smart and really, really good. And the other player was a Japanese player that Wolfe beat in the final round of the LCQ to qualify for Worlds. So Gothitelle Mawile was so smart. Wolfe obviously ran it, but Sejun came up with a different, more creative way to run Gothitelle, and I think Gothitelle was just absurdly broken in 2014. Shadow Tag is one of the best abilities in the game, and I think Sejun just abused that. Actually, the photo on screen was, this is turn 1 of me versus Sejun. So what Sejun did to me is he led Gothitelle Gardevoir into my Hydreigon Mawile. Most Hydreigons at the time were choice specs, so Sejun knew that most likely I couldn't protect myself. So he led Gothitelle Gardevoir. Turn 1, he just Dazzling Gleams, and I think he Tickles or Thunderwaves. It doesn't really matter. He trapped my Hydreigon in, and he forced the trade turn 1. He got my Hydreigon because of Shadow Tag. I didn't misplay or do anything wrong. I just led poorly into Gothitelle, and wow. I hadn't played against much Gothitelle, and so when I played against Sejun in the semifinals of Worlds, I was really shaken, and I had to readjust my thinking, and it was really difficult to play against at the time. It was really scary and really, really difficult to play against Gothitelle if you hadn't practiced much against it, which it wasn't a very popular Pokemon. Gothitelle was genius, and Wolfe and Sejun abused the shit out of Gothitelle, and I think they're both, it was a god tier call.
Thunderwave provides speed control, and although it looks a little surprising, given that Gothitelle learns Trick Room, this is Generation 6 Thunderwave, before it was nerfed. That means it never misses and quarters rather than halves a Pokemon speed.
Thunderwave was godlike, that was why I used Zapdos, and Sejun putting on Gothitelle, genius stuff right there. Because I used Zapdos, and I was a huge Zapdos fan, because I ran Thunderwave, Roost, Thunderbolt, Hidden Power, and it was just basically thunderous, and I loved it. But Gothitelle does that, and a little bit more, with Tickle and Shadow Tag.
As Gyarados and the rest of Sejun's team didn't end up benefiting from Trick Room, Thunderwave was a better choice. Tickle can weaken opponents offensively and defensively, and synergizes with Psyshock in addition to Mega Gyarados, and Shadow Tag stops opponents from leaving the field after being weakened.
Tickle's such a funny move, like, it's 10 out of 10. It's hilarious that this move was good, but it makes complete sense, like, especially with Gyarados, as Wolfe mentioned, and also to just weaken Mawiles, because Gothitelle always outspeeds.
With the added benefit of preventing Intimidate and Fake Out cycling, which would commonly be used to weaken Gyarados. Due to Gothitelle's bulk relative to the rest of the format, it was good at sticking around. And remember how
Yes, it
Mega Mawile was
was.
picking up in popularity again?
It's me.
Well, Gothitelle outsped most of them and could use Tickle to lower their attack before they even moved.
Did you see that animation? 10 out of 10.
So, we have Gothitelle for stat support and Gyarados for offense, but it wasn't enough to allow Gyarados to do everything it had to do. The next step many players take when they have a Pokemon that wants to set up is to add a redirector, and Sejun knows how valuable redirection is, maybe more than anyone entering Worlds in 2014. He brought Follow Me Magmar to the World Championships just the year before.
That was the coolest shit. Everyone knows Sejun for Pachirisu, but Follow Me Magmar, it's beautiful.
Generally, if you wanted redirection in 2014, there was one standard go-to Pokemon, Amoonguss. Amoonguss offered Spore and Rage Powder support and often even held the Rocky Helmet item to match up positively into Kangaskhan. When Gyarados was popular earlier in the format, Amoonguss was a premium partner. However, there was a major issue with Amoonguss. Rage Powder is a move that redirects all opponents' moves to the user, unless the opponent is immune to powder moves, and two major threats to Gyarados happen to be immune to powder moves, Ludicolo and Safety Goggle Zapdos.
So, when I played Sejun, I think Judy versus Sejun is a great match. It's so good. But I think my match versus Sejun, in the worst way possible, is the best showcase of his team. Zapdos was my favorite, like, my call and the best Pokemon on my team, and it was my answer to Gyarados. So when I played against Sejun, and I played against that Pachirisu, I couldn't beat Gyarados because of Pachirisu alone. I had Safety Goggles Zapdos. I was ready for Amoonguss plus Azumarill, Amoonguss Gyarados, all of that. Pachirisu was genius, specifically versus me. It was genius in general, but when I sat down and played Sejun, I couldn't do anything against Gyarados. It was such a good call for the tournament, and my team was exactly what Sejun expected to see, and he obliterated me because of Pachirisu. I got the hands dealt to me by Pachirisu because I ran Safety Goggles Zapdos, and it felt so bad, but it was so smart from Sejun.
Therefore, Sejun turned to other ways of redirection that wouldn't struggle versus those two. In other words, he needed to use Follow Me instead of Rage Powder, as Follow Me can't be ignored by Grass types or Safety Goggles users. And this is where, finally, Pachirisu comes into play. There were 4 legal Pokemon with Follow Me in 2014. Smeargle, Furret, Lucario, and Pachirisu. Sejun chooses Pachirisu, likely due to it being the bulkiest of the 4, having the best defensive typing, and having strong support options as well. Zapdos matches up terribly into Pachirisu.
It does. It does.
We haven't considered Pachirisu's other moves yet. Sejun gives his Pachi Nuzzle and Super Fang, 2 devastating support moves. Nuzzle allows Pachirisu to spread Paralysis around without fearing Taunt, another benefit over Amoonguss. Paralysis is especially helpful for Gyarados, as it allows Gyarados to outspeed faster Pokemon like Kangaskhan without a Dragon Dance, and also synergizes nicely with Waterfall's Flinch chance for even higher probability to stop an opponent from attacking. Super Fang ensures Pachirisu has solid presence on the field. You can't ignore it, as doubling into its partner risks the partner Pokemon protecting, while Pachirisu either spreads paralysis or takes half of your health. Pachirisu also has the same benefit of Gyarados we mentioned earlier, the element of surprise. I'm sure some of Sejun's opponents didn't even realize that Pachirisu learned Follow Me, and in many cases, Sejun's Pachirisu may have been the first Pachirisu they had ever played against.
It's really interesting because I actually had some friends who tested Pachirisu who did well in ICs, Angel Miranda, and then Blake Hopper did almost bring it to Nationals. He didn't. But I think Pachirisu was, I think a lot of top players thought about it and talked about it, but no one wanted to bring it and no one had the courage like Sejun did. And I think Sejun, his Pachirisu team was the best one I've ever seen. The other teams were pretty good, but this team was just genius. Pachirisu fit on this team like a glove. It was godlike. It was godlike.
In short, Pachirisu was the perfect partner for Mega Gyarados. Volt Absorb and Follow Me protected against electric attacks. Follow Me allowed for easier Dragon Dances. Nuzzle and Super Fang disrupted and weakened opposing teams. And even Gyarados' Intimidate increased Pachi's survivability. Sejun rounds out his team with Focus Sash Garchomp, Life Orb Talonflame, and Choice Scarf Gardevoir. These offensive and mostly frailer Pokemon were able to reap the same benefits as Gyarados, though to a lesser extent, from either or both of Gothitelle and Pachirisu. Even though Pachi was originally selected to protect Gyarados, Sejun did an exceptional job selecting other Pokemon that could use Pachirisu's support well. So, It isn't like Pachirisu was bad or something Sejun only chose because he liked it. Instead, it was a very niche Pokemon that filled a specific role he was looking for due to the unique traits it provided. Pachirisu alone wasn't enough to net Sejun a win. He had to make a number of really intelligent decisions going into the tournament, and his ability to find additional Pokemon that also benefited from the existing support he had made his team even more dangerous. I think it's worth noting that Pachirisu was, in many ways, a product of its time. It hasn't had any relevant success since Sejun's 2014 victory. This is in large part due to the 2014 metagame being quite limited in the Pokemon allowed.
It was really crazy too, because after Worlds, so normally after Worlds, people take the champions team, whoever won, and spam it at regionals and do well, they win, all that stuff, right? They try to use the best team. Obviously we've seen it with Wolfe's team from Worlds. We've seen it with, even most recently in 2019, people took versions or copies of the team that won and just did well with it, including myself. And I think this team was really interesting because after Worlds, I don't think Sejun's team had any crazy results because it just wasn't, the meta changed and it really, Sejun really just destroyed one meta and focused on winning Worlds. And after Worlds, obviously everything changes, but Pachirisu became a lot weaker. And I thought it was really interesting that Sejun's team isn't a team that keeps winning events afterwards like Wolfe's team has, or even the most recent 2019 World Champion team with Lunala and stuff. But Pachirisu just kind of stopped, and we never really saw it again. And I'm not going to say it was gimmicky. I just think it was just such a good call for that tournament specifically. And it was just incredible. I think it just shows how smart Sejun is as a player and a team builder. And, as a competitor, he is one of the brightest minds in VGC and one of the best players of all time. Ray, Wolfe, and Sejun are the three people I look up to the most, and Sejun's team building is just, I can't compete, man. He's a genius.
This is an example of an interesting phenomenon where how strong a Pokemon is depends largely on the other Pokemon around it. Pachirisu was one of the strongest Pokemon at Worlds 2014, but failed to get tournament results even a year later. I don't say this to put down Pachirisu, but to emphasize that knowing how to use a Pokemon sometimes isn't as important as knowing when to use a Pokemon.
It's true.
In conclusion, Pachirisu was a phenomenal choice to support other intelligent choices Sejun made going into Worlds 2014. Even though many viewed Pachirisu as underpowered compared to the Pokemon around it, it was actually due to the overall decreased power level of the format that allowed it to really thrive and keep up with the Pokemon it faced. Sejun's identification of the strengths of his support Pokemon in Gothitelle and Pachirisu, and how to use Pokemon that benefited from the specific support he already had, are a testament to his incredible team-building skills. If you enjoyed hearing about Sejun's victory, I recommend you check out his Twitter and Twitch. He creates great content and consistently uses other underexplored Pokemon. He was also nice enough to proofread the script and make sure I didn't miss anything, which was a massive help. Please show him your support.
Sejun is one of my favorite players of all time. I love the way Sejun plays the game and thinks. He's just so smart. And losing to Sejun in 2014 in the semifinals of the World Championships couldn't have been a better way to go, honestly. I couldn't be happier losing to Sejun. I think Sejun is incredible. And, man, this team was really, really smart, well thought out. And I think Sejun's just a genius player. That's really all I got to say. I hope you learned something, got a little more VGC 2014 lore out of this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys have an amazing day. Please like, comment, subscribe. Helps me out a ton. And I'll see you guys next time.